Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this new daisy granny square. These work up really quick, and you can just use little scraps of yarn to get them done. You can even use different colors as a stash buster. They're really, really sweet, and they make any granny square pattern just look really special. And if you want to follow along with a written pattern or a project planner, both are available over on my website, secretyarnery.com. And you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I'm speaking in this video right now. To make your daisy granny square, you will need 5 different colors of yarn. One for the center of your flower, one for the petals of your flower, one for the leaves, and then a light and a dark of whatever color you want. This is Favorite from Ice Yarns. It is a 4 worsted weight acrylic. I will be using a 6mm crochet hook. You will also need a needle for sewing in your ends and a pair of scissors. So let's get started. We're going to start with our center color, yellow. So grab your center color and make a slip knot any which way you normally do. Shrink that down and pop it onto your hook. And chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to go into this very first chain that we made right on top of our slip knot. So just slide your hook in, and you want to get a nice little U shape underneath your hook. And hold your tail along with that yarn. Now slip stitch to form a ring, holding that center space open with your finger and thumb, and chain 2. 1 and 2. So this does not count for anything. This is just to fill up our circle a little bit. Now we're going to do 12 double crochets right into the center of that ring. So wrap your yarn and into the center of your ring, right where you're holding it open, 1 double crochet. Wrap your yarn, 1 more double crochet. And now you can pause the video and keep working around. You want to have 12 double crochets into the center of your ring. As you're working around, you might run out of room working right around your ring. So just grab that very first stitch you did, that very first chain, and your last stitches, and just slide that apart. Just pull them apart, and that'll give you some more space to line up your double crochets nice and flat side by side in the center of your ring. There are my 12 double crochets. You don't count your chain. So there is our first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now we're going to slip stitch to join right into the top of that very first real double crochet right there. So pop your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. So that finishes round 1. Now we're going to use our white for our petals, and now we want to put our hook in, not right where we did our last join, but 1 stitch ahead. So there is our join, and we want to start our next row just 1 stitch ahead. So pop your hook in, 2 strands of that V on the top of your hook, loop of new yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. That counts as our first treble crochet. Take your tail and just hold it along the edge of your work. Wrap your yarn twice, and we're going to make 2 treble crochets into the very same stitch right here. So here is our first treble crochet. 1 and 2. So that counts as 3 with our chain. Pull your hook up, leaving a larger loop just so it doesn't disappear. And now we want to put our hook in right to the top of that very first stitch we did. So pop your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, loop of yarn back on your hook, and bring it through. Just like that, chain 2, 1 and 2. Wrap your yarn twice into the very next stitch. Right here, we're going to do our 3 treble crochets and then turn them into a popcorn. So here is 1 treble crochet. Wrap your yarn twice into the same stitch, your second treble crochet. Wrap your yarn twice into the same stitch, your third treble crochet. Just like that. Pull your hook up and take your hook out. Look for that very first stitch, your first treble crochet you made of that set, and pop your hook in just to the top 2 strands of that V on the top of your hook. Loop of yarn back on your hook and bring it through. And chain 2. So do that again. Wrap your yarn twice into the very next stitch, 3 treble crochets. So here is 1. Wrap your yarn twice, and 2. Wrap your yarn twice, and 3. So there is our 3 treble crochets. Pull your hook up and take your hook out. Slide your hook into the top of that very first treble crochet you made of that set. Loop of yarn back on your hook. Shrink it down and slip stitch. So just bring it through that stitch and chain 2. So now you're going to keep going doing the same thing, 3 treble crochets into a popcorn, into each of these stitches going all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back closer to where we started. When you get back closer to where we started, just count your petals. We want to have 12. So I'm going to put my very last petal right after that join. Remember, our chain 2 doesn't count for anything, and that's why we want to start and end in this spot so we can make sure we don't put too many stitches in at our join. So that is where we're going to put our very last petal. So wrap your yarn twice and into that last stitch. 3 treble crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And turn that into a popcorn. Just like that. Chain 2. Now we're going to join way over here on the other side of that next petal, that very first chain 1. That is where we're going to slip stitch. So 1 slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. And that finishes row 2. Now we're going to use green for our leaves. So here is our join. We want to count, if this is our first space, so there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. We want to start in the 4th space before that join. So pop your hook in, loop of your new yarn on your hook, bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join, drop your tail, just holding it along the side of your work, and chain 2, 1 and 2. If you join your yarn in a different way, do a chain 3. Now this counts as our first double crochet of the row. So wrap your yarn and 2 more double crochets into that very same space. 1 and 2. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're close to our joins. We're going to lay this tail over our work, going that way so we can work over it. And now we're going to be doing a corner. So that's extra stitches, and that is why we lined it up to start where we did, so we can put a corner over top of this tail. So corners are 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, 1, 2, and 3 more double crochets into the same space, 1, 2, and 3. Into the next 2 spaces, we're just going to do our sides. Sides are 3 double crochets. So 3 double crochets into each of the next 2 spaces. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, we're going to do a corner. So same as our last corner, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1 and 2, and 3 more double crochets into the same space. 1, 2, and 3. If you run out of space so you can't put them all side by side, you can always just grab your stitches and slide those back, and that'll give you some more space. Into each of the next 2 spaces, 3 double crochets into each. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, we're going to do a corner. So corners are 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So there is 2. Here is 3, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same space, making sure they're still lining up side by side. If not, slide your stitches back to give yourself some more room. There is the last double crochet. Into each of the next 2 spaces, those are your sides, so 3 double crochets into each space. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're back to where we started. We have our 3 double crochets in that last spot. That is going to be a corner. So just slide those stitches back to give yourself some new space, and 3 double crochets into that last corner space. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1, and 2, and we're going to slip stitch to join. So right into the top of this chain 3, we want to get 2 strands of that stitch on the top of our hook. So into the top of the chain 3, slip stitch to join, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. That finishes row 3. Next is the light shade of your color. To start row 4, turn your work. Pick a corner where you haven't joined your yarn and pop your hook into that corner space. Grab your next color, your light shade. I'm using this light lilac, and bring it through. Slip stitch with both strands to join and drop your tail. Chain 2, 1 and 2. That counts as our first double crochet. And into the same corner space, working over your tail, 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Into each of the spaces going along this side, 3 double crochets into each. 1, 2, 3. Into the next space, 1, 2, and 3. And into the last space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're at our corner. Your corners get another corner. So right into that corner space, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, all into the same corner space. There's 2, 3, chain 2, slide your stitches back to give yourself some more room, and 3 more double crochets, all side by side, nice and tidy, into the same corner space. There's 2 and 3. Now you can pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space along the sides, and corners of 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back closer to where we joined. When you get back to where we started, slide those stitches back out of your way, and 3 double crochets to finish that corner. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1 and 2. Now we're going to slip stitch to join just right here at the top of that chain, right there. So right beside your double crochet, that's your double crochet. We want to go into the stitch right beside it, right there. So pop your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on your hook, and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes round 4. And last is the dark shade of the same color. To start round 5, pick a corner where you haven't joined your yarn, maybe this one here, and working into the front of your work. So we're going to be turning our work every row. That is going to keep our granny squares nice and square when we join them up. So pop your hook into a corner you haven't used for joining before. Loop of your next color yarn, your dark shade, on your hook. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join, and drop your tail. You can hold your tail just along the edge of your work right there, and chain 2, 1 and 2. If you joined in a different way, chain 3. Wrap your yarn and 2 double crochets into that same space. 1 and 2. Into each of the next 4 spaces along the side, each of these are going to be getting 3 double crochets. So into each space along the side, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the last space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the space at the corner, we're going to do a corner. Corners, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1 and 2. You can slide those stitches back if you want to have some more space to work your double crochets into the corner. And now 3 double crochets to finish that corner. So there's 1, 2, and 3. So now you can pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space along the sides, and corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back to your corner, we're going to finish that with 3 double crochets. So there is 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of that chain to join, right there. So pop your hook in, 2 strands of that chain on the top of your hook, and slip stitch, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. Now sew in your tails and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I would love to see how yours turned out. You can find me on social media. All of those links are in the description box down below. And if you haven't joined or subscribed to this channel, go ahead and click those buttons under this video right now. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay hooked.